Next, I would like to introduce you to our luncheon keynote speaker, Scott Halliday, from Navajo Technical University. And let me tell you a little bit about Scott. He has worked at Navajo Technical University for 21 years, building capacity to provide equitable educational and research opportunities for not only NTU and other tribal colleges, but also mainstream universities across the United States. Mr. Halliday's efforts have resulted in an ever-expanding, cutting-edge, ultra-modern, advanced manufacturing research facility, providing NTU and partners access to research equipment to achieve breakthrough, high-level, metal, advanced manufacturing research. Mr. Halliday developed a unique opportunity at NTU to holistically train students, first as technicians in the metal advanced manufacturing ecosystem, pre-processing, processing, post-processing, and validation. As part of their training, students participate on the latest prominent research to inspire students to continue their education following a technician to engineer to scientist pathway. This provides students the ability to gain confidence and reach plateaus from where they can reflect on where they have been and where the path forward can lead them. We're very excited that Scott joined us. I know it's a long journey to get here, and we appreciate you being here. And thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. I wrote that. I had help writing that introduction. Quite a long introduction. I've received such warm welcome. Thank you. Everybody here has been very inviting for me. Very appreciative. So, yeah, I'm Scott Halliday. I run the Center for Advanced Manufacturing at Navajo Technical University. So a little bit about my presentation talk today will be a little bit of background about NTU and the Center for Advanced Manufacturing, why we chose advanced manufacturing metal AM. This is, not quantum, but I would say quantum adjacent. Can a TCU lead the way, play a major role in what's going on for us in New Mexico, creating meaningful partnerships, and finally economic development, we're still hammering at that. It's a tough nut to crack for us. So Navajo Technical University is in Crown Point, New Mexico, in the Four Corners area. We're chartered by the Navajo Nation. We're a tribal college/university, a TCU. There are 38 TCUs throughout the United States. We're the biggest TCU. We're the only TCU with ABET accreditation in industrial engineering and electrical engineering. We're applying for, and I think we've actually gotten the accreditation for all of our engineering and engineering technical programs now. And we do have graduate degrees in electrical and industrial engineering. So we're the only TCU that has that. We have a PhD in Dene culture and leadership as well. So we're doing pretty good. I've been there for 21 years. When I started, we had 300 students. We hover around 1,500 to 2,000 students now. And when we put in our first four-year program, our enrollment tripled. So we went from 300 to about 900 in 1 year. It was an incredible growing pains right then. So our NTU CAM vision and mission. So our vision is to develop a center of excellence in advanced manufacturing to provide the Navajo Nation with the tools to be a leader in advanced manufacturing, basically. The mission is to create a Navajo workforce that will support advanced manufacturing and grow the economy. And for us to support research, new discoveries, new wealth, and provide sustainability for the Navajo Nation. Right now, as we are developing all of our engineering programs, we're just promoting brain drain. No jobs on the Navajo Nation. Good, take your education. We'll see you later. And everybody told me, that was good because the Navajo way is to go out, gain more knowledge, and then bring it back. I said, but what are they bringing it back to? How are we supporting them coming back to the Navajo Nation? Is there any business, manufacturing opportunities for them? Are we supporting any kind of economic development, prototyping? Can they bring any idea to fruition? And they didn't want to quite see that far down the road. So, this is our issue. So, economic development had to be part of our plan at NTU in order to create that sustainability. So what does the Center for Advanced Manufacturing do? Well, we're kind of a hub at the school. We support research. We have education support, K through 12 and higher ed within our school. We create industry partnerships, and we're working on economic sustainability. So, we were put into the Navajo Nation's long-term economic development plan. We are a pillar for manufacturing, and there's no manufacturing on the Navajo Nation, primarily because there's no manufacturing on the Navajo Nation. Nobody's brother, uncle, sister, mother there's nothing on the Navajo Nation for manufacturing. So we're really bringing and starting new industry there. So primarily we in the lab are a metal AM, metal additive manufacturing research lab. And the reason why we chose metal AM is because there's so many support services needed for metal AM. So we go by this ecosystem, and this was created by Boeing. They're down in El Segundo, California. They're one of the largest consumers of additive manufactured parts, their satellite division. And so we primarily do pre-processing, processing, post-processing, and then validation. And our students learn the whole thing. It's all under one roof, which is pretty unique for a university to have all their research equipment under one roof, and one management too. So students aren't going to a different building to reserve time at midnight somewhere else, and it's all under one roof, which is very convenient. And our students learn the holistic. I mean, that's part of indigenous education, not to have a reductionist view of it, so nobody's just learning the metal AM part or the materials part or this and that. So students know where the design is coming from, where the part is going, what materials are coming in, and all the way through. So they get a very good understanding of manufacturing in general. So these are some of the items that or skills that our students learn just by coming into the lab. So under the pre-processing, you can see there, I'm not going to read them all. So there are a lot of components that our students get introduced to. I allow them, of course, to concentrate, whatever you want to concentrate on that, but don't give up all the rest. So we have students that like the metrology portion. We have students that concentrate on CT scanning. So they concentrate in certain areas, which is nice. But they do have an understanding of everything that's going on in the lab. And I'm willing for interruptions. If you want to ask questions as I go, feel free.
Was there welding? I just missed it.
No, there is no welding in metal AM.
Oh,
that's welding. So we do have a welding program. We don't do welding in my lab. I think we started it out as a fabrication lab, which gave the impression that we can make anything in the world, which people do expect. They come to us and, well, you can make car brakes here. Not really. But we have a welding program, and I encourage them. I go and try to recruit them, at least for some of the materials, looking at welding inspection, and we're starting to onboard some NDE and NDT stuff. So yeah, it gives them a different pathway. It's a good progression for them. Here are some of the things that just some things that we've done. Some of the CT scanning, metal AM, some powder characterization things that we do in the center. So as a TCU, this portion right here is can a TCU at Trump College lead the way? So these are some of the firsts that we are in New Mexico. So we're the first to own and operate a metal AM machine. That's pretty significant for a tribal college. We have New Mexico State University, New Mexico Tech, and University of New Mexico in our state. But we were the first ones to delve into metal AM. We're the first ones to have a CT scanner. And a lot of this is just having a vision and a roadmap and a strategic plan of where we wanted to go. And looking for, which is going to tie in niche things, right? So nobody had a CT scanner. And I knew that CT scanning was important for metal AM. So if we were the only ones in New Mexico with a CT scanner, well, the bigger schools had to partner with us in order to conduct their metal AM research. And so what our partnerships were basically were for us to do the technical work. I used research so that I could train my students on the technical aspects of our equipment. Workforce development. Nobody was dealing with metal AM workforce development. Whether it was building their research parts, understanding how to run the equipment, because nobody had institutional knowledge. I've worked with like Nebraska and other large schools. They have their graduate students learn just enough about the metal AM machine to make parts, little small cubes and coins and things like that. And then they're gone. And then they let somebody else learn it, and then they're gone. So there's no institutional knowledge of how to run machines and things like that. We're the first in the state to have wire EDM, so now we're looking at post-processing. So we're having companies now sending us their parts so that we could wire EDM them off the plate, resurface the plate. So we're learning how to do this for ourselves by using them. First in New Mexico to really integrate a variety of technologies to enhance metal AM research. So we're really the drivers in New Mexico for metal AM research. When the other schools came, we had Drexel University come with one of our partners, and they come and they said, I knew what you had in your lab, but I didn't know what you had. So they went back and they started building their labs saying, okay, this is the way we have to start building our labs with all this integration of technologies. So we're the first to own a metal AM powder atomizer, so we're going to start making our own metal AM powder. Nobody in New Mexico does that, not even the labs. So we have two NNSA labs, Los Alamos and Sandia down in New Mexico. They're already lining up at the door, wanting new alloys to be atomized so that they can start doing that. That was a great thing that we did there, was to go into this world of powder atomization. And Drexel, University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and all the schools down there see the lab as an indispensable part of their research. And now we're seen as leaders in New Mexico in metal AM. So all the big schools come to us for the technical aspects of metal AM, which is nice. And it's empowering for our students. So our students, technically, they come in as freshmen, and they're right on the metal AM machine, which is unheard of at most schools. Most schools it's not until you're a graduate student do you get to even start touching and operating the machines. I need a workforce, and I need it now. So as a freshman, if you show any kind of interest, you're on the machine, you get trained, and you start running it, which turns out to be pretty good. So TCUs have funding opportunities for infrastructure. There's a lot of money out there for TCUs. In NSF, there's a Tribal College University program, TCUP. And I learned very early on that we're a fountain of money. None of that money can go to a non-TCU, but internally, yeah, if you have a half good idea, yeah, you can. There's opportunities, and if your leadership is good and supportive, you can grow so that as long as you're supporting the school and supporting the mission of your nation, you sometimes have broad freedom to do what you need. So I'm here and I'm going, quantum. So I see advanced manufacturing as an enabling technology. If we can make, we're just manufacturers, right? And we use different techniques for manufacturing. So yesterday I saw the 3D printer guys at the conference, and I went and talked to them saying, okay, how can we incorporate this? We want to be a part of this too. I have an NSF Engines Development Award for the Navajo Nation. So I know what you guys are getting into. So TCUs are looking for a local need, and often that we want to create a niche for us. The Navajo Nation I don't think we'll ever have like a 10,000 employee manufacturing plant. That's not what's going to happen on the Navajo Nation. The Navajo Nation's the size of West Virginia, so it's a large area of landmass, the largest reservation in the country. But the population's 175,000, spread out. It's kind of like Montana, we're just spread out. For Lano to get to us, it's 4.5 hours to come visit us. But they do. They come and visit us. They'll drive out, and the nearest place to stay overnight is an hour away. So they have to stay an hour away to come and visit our school if they're going to spend the night. So a lot of things are kind of similar here in our rural areas. And we found that, those Build Back Better programs, and even the NSF Engines isn't really built for rural communities. They're built for more urban areas that rely on public transportation and wraparound services that are everywhere. Well, if we want somebody to come to an apprenticeship program, they need health or child care we have to stand up a child care facility for them in where they live. So a lot of that stuff is, written for the rural areas, but not really written. They don't understand rural areas. Quite frustrating. A lot of tribal colleges are agile, but the sustainability for tribal colleges is an issue. We live off of soft money. Everything, I'm 100% funded under grants. My staff is 100% funded under grants. So it's a lot of pressure, to sustain it like this. But again, there's, leveraging, and it works out. NTU developed a technician to engineer to scientist progression. So tomorrow's researchers may be today's technician. So like I said, we bring in our freshmen, they start operating the equipment. I've had some instructors say, no, you need to know every aspect about this, how this machine was built, how it operates, you need to know the nuts and bolts before you operate this machine. I'm like, nope, just go right in there, start operating. If it breaks, we'll fix it. This is the time to break it. We'll give you the training. Hopefully you won't break it, but break it here and not where you're going to work. They're very happy to be doing that. somebody had mentioned that they noticed that my interns on campus have a different walk about them than other students on campus, just because they operate $750,000 pieces of equipment. It's very empowering for them. So, and it gives them really good insight. For example, so we had 3 students who won 3 of the 6 awards for the Zeiss Scholarship in CMM in metrology. So, the students, they just so happens that they had taken a course in that the previous year. They used the CMM for their research, and they decided that they would enter it. These 3, they won an award. Winter, which is one of them, and another student won it again this year. 2 of them entered. And then Nylana and Winter are enrolled in a master's program at Purdue University. And my lab is good enough so that Lano hired 7 of my interns, paid them, and they do the work in my lab for Lano, which is great because they get to stay at home, they get to still go to school at NTU, and they get paid a Lano wage, which I kind of wish I got paid. But, so they graduated, and now they're at Purdue, but they're taking their course online, doing their research in my lab again. So they get to stay on the Navajo reservation, get to stay with their families, but they're enrolled in the Purdue program. So we do that with NMSU, Purdue, UTEP, and I think there's a couple more schools that are lining up to do this. So, being able to create a lab that can support students going to school. I'm not sure that they would have gone on had they have to go to Purdue, and they're still contemplating whether or not they want that hybrid. We were just out of Purdue last week, and they're kind of like, well, we have to find an apartment if we're coming out here this year or this next year, and they're still unsure of whether or not they want to go out there or stay at home. These 2 students, the professor told me that they were so much further advanced than their students going into this program because they had so many years of experience on the equipment. They knew the powder characterization. They knew the metal AM process. They knew the post-processing. They knew the CT scanning. They knew the materials testing. They knew what they were looking at. They want them to immediately go into the PhD program. They want them to skip the master's and go right into the PhD. So that was validating. I was happy to hear that. So this technician to engineer to scientist progression really does them good. And you can really see a big difference between the students that come to my lab and live in my lab and the students that don't when they do their capstone. Because a lot of the capstone students are coming in and they're just now learning the technology that we have in the lab. And these students are like doing PhD level research on theirs. So, I think TCU is in a good position if they're willing to onboard these kind of things. So, definitely reach out to your TCUs. And I think my takeaway for this is allow them to have a niche area within this that they can be experts in and contribute to what's going on in the rest of the state in the quantum photonics and optics areas. So partners for me and collaborators, very important. I don't have a research brain, I'm a technical guy. I'm not a doctor. It says I'm a doctor in the program. I'm not a doctor. I have an associate degree. I'm a CAD guy. But I like to learn. And I wanted to build a lab. So I connect with my students really, really easily at the technician level, but I needed them to be able to progress. So I need my engineers. I need other researchers at other universities so that my students can participate in that research. So even though they're doing the technical work, they're sitting in on the meetings, learning why they're doing the research. So they're learning about what's going on, and they get published. So by doing a lot of the technical work. So, we have industry and academic research partners. And like Tim said, maybe you can put Montana State up there.
Exactly.
So in partnerships, partnering with a tribal college, and I can speak for Navajo Tech and what it took for us to partner with people. We've had people come in and say, hey, we want to be a partner, and here's how it's going to work. And we'll teach your teachers how to teach, we'll take your students, and you won't have to do much work. So we just want your students. And internally in New Mexico, everybody has a high Native American count, so they didn't care about partnering with us. So all of our partners were out-of-state partners. And once I created my lab, they started coming to us because it was easier for them to work with us and access our equipment than it was for them to access their own equipment. And I had grants to support that because I'm doing workforce training. So I need work, and I can't come up with enough work for my students. So for me, creating a strategic plan was job number one. So I carry on a strategic plan, 5-year plan that gets updated quite often. Amazingly, a lot of people don't. A lot of places don't. So I have a longer term plan of where I want to go and what we're preparing. So I'm not just working on the 5-year plan, but I'm working that this 5-year plan is leading to something longer, but I need another 5-year plan to get there. So I have somebody read one of my notebooks from 2008. She said, oh my God, you're doing all of this stuff that you wrote down in your notebook in your plan. And I said, yeah, that's why I write it down. I can't remember it all. And so it's very helpful, and it allows me to get grants because I can very well articulate where I am, where I've been, and where I'm going. And you gave us money to buy this piece of equipment. We've used it, and we're ready to move on. Now you've got to support us in research. Well, I need this piece of equipment in order to do that too. And so, it's very easy. Yes?
Yeah, I'm curious, on the input for the 5-year plan, who provides you the input to that?
So I have an advisory board. They input, but I don't really rely on them too much because I'm on the Navajo Nation. I'm starting from scratch, and I do what I can.
Okay.
So I'll take their advice in holistically, and then okay, this is what I can do now, this is what I can do then to get kind of where I'm going.
Okay. They provide you with some sort of what their desires are and areas of interest and things like that.
Yeah. So in the world of workforce training and what's coming down the world, I don't live in this normal world. I guess it's kind of a fantasy world. But so I attended somebody that articulated the way my brain works. And it's the Prosperity Paradox book about the unknown economy. So, people, when I'm saying I want to start our AM business, want to have spin-offs, start doing prototyping with our metal AM, they ask me, well, who's your customers? I go, I don't know. I don't know who's going to come yet. They say, well, what's your projection on sales? What are you basing that on? I don't know. Nobody does this in this area, in metal AM. Well, okay, so, there are these unknowns that it's an unknown economy that once you present people with this opportunity, you don't know what's going to come out of the woodwork. Same thing with the powder atomization. Well, who are your customers, Bob? I don't know, but I assume it's going to be all the academics in the state of New Mexico who are already lining up at the door. The national labs have expressed an interest. Well, how much is it, you're going to generate? Well, I don't know, because I don't know how much more people around I don't know how much more material are going to be developed because they have this opportunity to have powder in small quantities being developed, in a very short time. I don't know what that's going to release in opportunities. So, that's, kind of build it, they will come, kind of faith. I don't know. You guys are paying for it. Thank you all. We'll see if it works out. So I see a lot of strategic plans that go without, what do you need? There are a lot of wish lists I see coming through from our instructors internally at NTU for their strategic plans. So I definitely put in what I'm going to need, who I'm going to need to help me, how much will it cost, and where am I going to get that money. So I have projections for those kind of things when I do my 5-year plan. I expect to make this partnership with somebody who's going to provide this. That's going to allow me to write this grant, which will provide that. So, connecting dots for this. For example, I created a strategic plan for 3D printing. This was my first strategic plan. Create a CAD program incorporating 3D printing and 3D modeling. By 2006, somebody I was having dinner with said, well, why don't you go do an internship with Marshall Space Flight Center? I said, they have that? And he said, yeah, we just started a program through AHEC, American Indian Higher Education Consortium, that Marshall is looking for people. You do CAD, let me make a few phone calls. Well, it just so happens that their digital manufacturing group didn't want to pay their engineers to do CAD, so we went in and did a bunch of CAD work for them, which is great. And so they said, well, you want to write a grant? And I said, sure, never written a grant before. And so he said, well, we'll get you software and a 3D printer so that justifying it by if we stop using you as our training and we come in better trained, we're better able to work at a higher level for you. They said, great. And so my first $85,000 grant was written in conjunction. The lady kept coming out. She was in a meeting and she'd come out, hey, paragraph 5, what's the language there? Can you change that? Tell me what you mean by this. And then she'd go back into the meeting. But it did get funded. So I learned kind of how to write grants at that. And then each partnership is unique. Make partnerships that work for both of you. So if I'm working with somebody who's making a partnership and they say, oh, I only care about you. I only care about you. Whatever you want, we'll do. You just tell me what you want, I'll do it. I'm not sure that partnership's really going to work out because there's nothing that we're providing you. I think that we both have to have skin in the game. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. I have multiple partnerships, and they all serve different purposes. So I don't do a whole project with just one partner. I do a whole project within NTU, but I parcel out certain portions of that project and my growth within the lab and students' needs throughout several different partnerships. Spread the wealth and then prepare to bring together your partners. So I sometimes see a need where I have to introduce you two so that we can do something bigger. So that's happened a few times. So yeah, that's kind of bring together the partners. So I worked with Drexel University, I worked with UNL, I worked with Sigma Labs, which was a company. And so I worked with all of them individually, and then I saw a need, well, okay, we all need to get together because this is going to be more. And then we did several projects and created several papers with the three of us working together, which was pretty good. That's one of the papers that was presented by Drexel University. It's kind of a culmination of all of our work that we're doing in situ monitoring and quality control for metal additive laser powder bed fusion. And we did a lot of CT scanning and materials characterization for this, powder characterization. So we also run a summer program for students with other MSIs. So we have a Hispanic Serving Institution, New Mexico State, and a HBCU, Prairie View, that we work in a consortium with NNSA Lab. And so we run a 2-week program where they go through everything, start to finish. It's a hectic 2 weeks, but for some of them, this is the only time that they have ever worked hands-on on the equipment. It's just a short video.
The research experience that we expect the students to get is in metal additive manufacturing. But what we really want is for them to understand the holistic view of the manufacturing process. So it's not just the metal 3D printing, but it's the feedstock that goes into it. Understand the powder, the characteristics of the powder. It's understanding where does the part go afterwards to the EDM. How do they set that all up? How do they coordinate that with the person who's doing the EDM work?
I thought it was awesome. I really like the location. I like how the lab's not too big. It's nice and small. Everybody kind of knows each other, and we got to do so much. There's a lot of
Quickly outgrew my
in
lab.
there that I don't have access to back home.
My first research project I've ever done, so it's kind of cool that it's within my own major and a research project that doesn't feel like research. It's not just metal printing, it's not just FDM printers, there's a wide range of printers that I didn't even know exist, and I work with them on a daily.
I feel like this is a really good opportunity for students who might not have select opportunity at bigger institutions, such as Mexico State, because I know there's a lot more minorities there, but I know a lot of them don't get the opportunity to get such a hands-on work experience.
I love the Fat Lab. Ever since I came into it, I was like, I just want to go there every day. And slowly I worked my way like every semester to get in
there. So it'll give me like a leg up in terms of knowing additive manufacturing, being able to put together parts. CAD is really sought out in like job interviews and stuff like that.
So our students are going to hopefully gain a variety of experiences. I want them to create a skill set that they can use in research. So data analysis, data collection. So they want to be able to design their experiment for certain materials. They want to be able to execute it. And then I also want them to be able to run equipment. So we have our inch-on, we pair that with our Aramis BIC cameras. I want them to be able to understand what they're doing and why they're doing it.
The advantages of having a laboratory with all of the equipment provided is very helpful, and it's really neat to know that you don't have to go out of state or out of the county or even out of the country to get any of your parts, whether if you need anything for pre-processing or post-processing. So you're in Crown Point, we have everything available.
It's important for them to have the diversity, and it's important to kick open that door for our minority students, to give them the opportunity to see what is at a national laboratory. Do they want to work at a national laboratory? And that they know it's a viable option for them.
Center for Advanced Manufacturing.
And this year we did one for faculty as well. So this is just a brief history of my grant world. So like I said, you know, I'm a mental midget and I get this kind of money, so you know, somebody with a good idea tells you what a good plan will do for you, you know, in telling a good story. My grants are generally light on data, but heavy on stories.
Scott, this is great. Can I ask you a question? Looking at the video really triggered. Do you teach the students problem solving? So if they're hired, all of a sudden they got to figure something out. They're like the only one. Problem solving experiences.
Oh yeah. So there are two things that. So what you saw was a 2-week workshop. And we take them from CAD through material microscopy. So they print, which takes a whole day. They EDM, they do metrology, CT scanning, tensile testing, and then microscopy. In that time, we don't teach them much about problem solving. We're teaching them primarily hands-on equipment use. But the students that are in the lab, yeah, at some point I tell them, stop using my brain, start using your brain. You know, when they call me over and say, well, this isn't doing this. I go, all right, and I go over there, and it works. And they say, what'd you do? I don't know, but you can do that same thing. So, yes, we do delve into that. And, you know, they get better at it, of course. But most of my students didn't grow up taking things apart. Like you were saying, you know, I think you were saying take apart. Right, so I took apart my mom's washing machine, ball bearings everywhere on the floor, stuff like that. But that was my childhood. They typically don't grow up taking stuff apart and using tools. So this is the first time, you know, you're using the wrong hammer, you know, and things as basic as that. Teaching how to utilize the equipment, and then throwing on $750,000 metal AM printer. But so economic development, what does that look like on the Navajo Nation? I think smaller distributive manufacturing businesses that impact communities that want them. We aren't dictating where these are going. You know, community has to want to onboard manufacturing. Different communities want different things. Some communities want farming and more traditional lifestyles. Working with the Navajo Nation Economic Development Department to identify those communities. Working to create the infrastructure, so we still need broadband, it's a big issue. You know, that digital divide that was supposed to be solved under Clinton, still an issue. You know, we still have that last mile issue. During COVID, students still had to drive up to the highest point, trying to get signal to continue to go to school. Roads are an issue, and that stems from many things, like GIS. So they have to have good GIS in order to get good road maintenance done, and electricity, water. So, you know, microgrids, we're still working. There are several things that we're working on, right? Trying to get microgrids, working with DOE to get that kind of funding, alternative energy opportunities. Water is an issue on the Navajo Nation, so we still do a lot of water initiatives, and we still truck water. So families are still coming into towns to get their water. They still truck water back to their house. And withdrawing land for new facilities and quality of life. So I thought all I had to do was create new businesses, give people jobs, keep them there. But there's this thing called quality of life that we're all looking for, right? So you guys got really nice quality of life. And we do in New Mexico too. It's just fostering that. So the Navajo Nation, we talked to the economic development team, and they said, well, we just thought that it would bubble up from grassroots. And it didn't. You know, well, we want a movie theater or whatever. Didn't happen. This is just kind of a graphic of what we see in bringing people together and progressions that are available for our students. And so In economic development, what are the hurdles? Creating businesses on Navajo Nation, creating the workforce for the businesses. When do we hit critical mass for launching the commercial business? How do we, do the tech transfers, research to commercial, and working with the Navajo Nation. So even though we're a part of the Navajo Nation, they still see us as someone else. So even with our engines development grant, they kept saying, well, your project. I said, no, this is our project. You're part of this. This is the Navajo Nation and us working on this. Well, your project. No, our project. Our project. So, breaking down that door, even for us, is a hard one.
Scott, please give me a question. This is wonderful because I've done a lot of work years and years ago with the Navajo Nation when it came to public health. So in other words, the Dene, the community, the family, how do you, so basically they're separating themselves from what you're doing. How do you get drawn into the Dene? Can you?
Yeah, so we're part of Dene, right? We're part of the Navajo Nation. We're chartered by the Navajo Nation. We're supposed to be partners with the Navajo Nation. But I think some of that is because we're internal with the Navajo Nation. They would rather, there are buzzwords out there, AI. Well, we want AI to come to the Navajo Nation. That way everybody can work, and they can work from home, and they can make a great living, and we don't need anything. And then, so many other companies have come in and offered, there's a battery company that wants to come in and set up a huge manufacturing plant. Well, they would rather bring somebody in than incubate from inside. We see that within our school too. So we're trying to incubate our students to become the teachers. Somebody take my job that is from the community. But it's one of those things where, well, the school doesn't really value that, they're from outside, so they must be better, even though we educated them and they know the system. I think there's a little bit of that, but, we're breaking down those walls.
Thank you.
So we work with them much better now. So, yeah, that's a little bit about tribal colleges, a little bit about my tribal college, Navajo Tech, and our road to how do we create niche opportunities for our students so that we can have economic development on the Navajo Nation. Thank you.